Welcome back guys, GTS Garage. Today we are going to continue with a 30,000 mile service. So I call it an episode there, but it's not. The last video, I basically took all the skins off around the bike, and that gave us access to the fuel tank. And through the fuel tank we gain access to the air filter and then beneath, and we just keep peeling away those layers like an onion. Okay, so the first part is to disconnect the battery, which I've not done yet, but I've removed the, I believe this to be the diagnostic tool. It comes on this framework. So two things go into this. It basically plugs into that arm there, and then this 40 amp fuse also fits onto there. So that just keeps it all in one place. Okay, so the first job is to actually disconnect the battery. So I'm going to take the negative off first, then I'm going to take the positive off. Okay, just to bring you in a bit closer to make this absolutely clear, because I probably will need this as well to put the bike back together again. You basically have a connection here that goes into this black terminal. This black terminal, there's got black wire that comes over to the negative, and you've got a brown wire that comes over to the live, and then that wire then goes into the solenoid, which is just there. So we will be removing the solenoid shortly, but before we do that, this black wire here gets connected. There's a little, now hopefully you can see that, maybe you can't, but there is a clip down here, and that black wire just clips through there, and it's to the side of that battery box. So to give us some clearance, we're now going to unclip that and remove that black wire. So that black wire is now free. So with the battery box removed, the next step is to remove this piece of hardware here. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but there are 4 screws. 1, through there, 2, 3, 4. Now, I have been told to watch these back screws because there really isn't enough room to get your fingers in, so don't drop them. One-handed again is not particularly perfect, but this just comes out revealing the top of the headstock. With that removed, we're now going to disconnect the hoses on either side of the petrol tank, but to do that we need to take this off. The only one that's left in now is the short one. All the others are long and seem to be identical. Once you've removed the bolts from around the rim, you've then got one bolt in the middle. You can just see it there. Careful not to drop that bolt into the fuel tank, but that's the one that holds the actual cap onto the tank itself. So the next job to do is to remove that bolt. Okay, with the fuel cap removed, we are now able to remove both the tubes from the cap and just reroute those down. Now it should be fairly easy to understand which one came from where because they stay on the bike. But right, with the hose appropriately marked, I'm the first one to say that I'm an idiot and I will get it wrong, even though it should be impossible to do so. So then the next thing to do is just to route this through until it's got there was a clip just in there. So you should be able to just go through the thinnest part and then bring that out, and then that kind of just sits, just bring that down, and then it's the same for the other side. Okay, the next job is to actually remove this structure. Now they do say don't try to remove this in one lump, take it apart properly. So what we're looking at is a 10mm nut, 2 on the other side, and these 4, so that's 8 in total. So that is the next job. Fittings have come off of this. I'm going to put the fittings back on, and then I'm going to put the bolts back on. The nuts back onto this as well. That means it may need I double the work when I come to put this back together again, but at least I know where those fittings are. Okay, on the left hand side of the bike you should be able to see in the position where your other relays are, you've got the fuel sender. Now basically there is a tiny little clip in there, and all you have to do to release that is push that clip in. So push in and release. That's the fuel sender disconnected. Now I've come to the conclusion there's no elegant way of doing this, but we've got to empty the tank. So don't follow me because mine is going to be an absolute nightmare. But I have used a clamp on one side, so I'm only dealing with one side at a time. And I'm praying that when I remove this, I only have to worry about one side of it. If I don't, I'm going to be screaming for my wife. Yeah, not perfect. Okay, so once you've actually done the fuel, so this one's there, you can reconnect these two. But because of the way one's on the outside and one's on the inside, it's going to snag your fuel tank when you leave. So you need to bring this pipe outside of the frame. But doing so, just make sure you're aware of how it runs, where the pipe runs. So make a note of how that fits in for when you put the bike back together again. Okay, so the front of the bike, just underneath the wing mirror, you then have the securing bolts for the tank. So there's one on the left and one on the right. We're just going to remove those now. So once those securing bolts are out on the left and the right, you basically just lift up and pull back slightly. Do not pull back a lot, because all you're trying to do is get to the connecting wires underneath the tank. If you pull too hard, you're going to break those wires and then you're going to be in a world of hurt. Okay, so to undo this, there's a connector on the back. I'm hoping you can see me, otherwise this is all going to be for nothing. There's a connector at the back, and what you need to do is get a small bladed screwdriver from underneath, and there is a little catch on there which you need to prise out. So there's a little catch, so you just come in from underneath, push up, and then prise out. Hang on, let me just quickly do that one again. Prise out until you can see it moving, and then you unclip it. Okay, so we're coming to now disconnect the entire thing. So there's one hose remaining, so that comes from the back of the fuel tank all the way to the fuel rail. Now it has two connections. It has a banjo on the fuel tank, and it has a connector, a pull down and squeeze in connector at the other end. I have been warned against doing the pull down and squeeze in connector on the basis it's fairly easy to break the nipple, the fuel nipple at the end. So they've said don't do that. Easiest is just to disconnect it from the back of the fuel tank. So we should now be able to lift this up and lift this away. And we, oh, hold your horses, yeah, and we can. Right, now to go and put this somewhere safe. Now to open the airbox, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got 5 little Torx, so don't put an Allen key in there because you'll just strip them out. Okay, so with those Torx bolts removed, we can just now take out the air filter, and it's a K&N. We've already been told it's a K&N, so it's got the sticker on the front. So we just lift that out so we know we can just wash this one. And not too bad. So not overly bad. So this one's just going to get a clean and put back in. Okay guys, that is it. We are where we said we were going to be, and that is we have now removed the fuel tank. I hope people find that useful, and we have access to the air filter. We will keep going down, so the air filter is just the first stop. Once we take that, we're taking that off, and we're going to get access to below. But for now, we're going to call it a day.